I'm Ben Ganger, and the Goshen Library helped me win 5 games of Jeopardy. I grew up 2 blocks down the street, down 5th Street from the library. So I was coming down here all the time, especially during the summer. I have really, really fond memories of the kids' summer reading program and the teen program. We were here all the time. The program introduced me to a lot of the special interests that I have as an adult. I really remember the year that was themed around food, and we did a coffee tasting at the Brew, which was the first time where I was like, I think I like coffee. We got to go behind the scenes at the Maple City Market, like taste some of their organic foods or dairy alternative ice creams, things like that. Now I'm a vegetarian later in life, so that helped. Apparently a story stuck around about my brothers and I tipping a canoe on one of the excursions. There was one themed around creative ways to destroy peeps. We may have hidden some around the reference section with notes to return them to the librarian who was running the program. I think she got one a couple of years later.
Then you also had actually played a Jeopardy game during summer reading?
That's true. It was that same food program. It was here in this conference room. They brought us all down here and split us up into teams. And I remember thinking that they wouldn't throw super hard trivia questions at a school program. And I was wrong. They were hard. I have wanted to go on for a while. I watched the show a bunch as a kid, especially when Ken Jennings started winning every night. So I finally took the leap and took the online test in the summer of 22. So it was a while ago. There's an anytime test that you can take on their website. If you do well enough, which is upper 30s, lower 40s, then you get invited to take another test. If you make it past that and you get invited to a Zoom audition, at that point you are in the contestant pool. Congratulations, you did it. You sit around and you wait and you hope you get a call from LA. I did my Zoom audition in July of 22, and I got the call from the producer January of 25. Once you get into the contestant pool, you have 18 months and then your time is up. You have to take the anytime test again, get back through, and that's really normal. I'm pretty unusual in the fact that I got onto the show the first time I auditioned. And that's nothing to do with my skill at the game or anything, it's just kind of how things shook out. I started watching every episode of Jeopardy I could get my hands on. So I guess the 2 things I was trying to train the most for, you're trying to train up your knowledge base, and you're trying to train up your Jeopardy specific skills. So for the knowledge base, I tried to focus on things that were complete sets of knowledge, like US presidents or world capitals, as opposed to categories like film or TV or literature. Even something like art, Jeopardy's only going to ask about so many artists. You can learn all the ones that they're going to ask you about. But then there's this other side, because everybody who gets on Jeopardy is good at trivia. That's why they got invited to go on the show in the first place. There's a guy who has a whole book dedicated to how to get better at the buzzer.
Did you read that book?
I did, yeah, I absolutely did. I read it several times, and I followed most of his advice. A lot of times where I thought I was trying to time it, and I thought oh, that was a horrible buzz, Ben. And then there would be this brief pause and I would see my podium light up. I guess not. Okay, great. I downloaded a flashcard app called Brainscape. It's the study method where it alters the frequency of the repetition of the cards based on how well you know them. Eventually, it's kind of narrowing down what's coming up frequently to the things that you need the most work on. That gave me a really good idea of what are good areas for me versus bad areas for me. Because the Jeopardy canon of knowledge is 16 miles wide, but it's 1.5 inches deep. So if they're talking about Northern European painters from the Baroque period, they're either talking about Rubens or they're talking about Rembrandt. Maybe they're talking about Van Dyck. They're not talking about anybody else. And going through those old questions on that flashcard app really helped me pick out, they really like to ask about these specific figures. So I came in here because that kind of study problem was really thorny for me. It's hard to find resources that are wide, but not that deep, but still deep enough to be usable and interesting to engage with, and not just a list of names and dates and stuff. So I came here and went to the reference desk and asked for help. outlined my problem for Roberta. I said I have an upcoming appearance on a trivia game show while I was like drumming my fingers on Amy Schneider's memoir. Because at the time I wasn't sure like how much I was allowed to be like, oh my God, I'm going on Jeopardy. But she was like, okay, you've outlined the problem well. She took me back into the stacks and found some books specifically around art and artists that were incredibly helpful. A lot of these like, glossaries of famous works and famous artists. I'd also mentioned offhand to her that like English monarchs was something that I felt like I could get secure on by the time I went on. So I looked through a few books and was walking back by the reference desk, and she flagged me over, and she had learned this poem that helped her memorize the list of monarchs, and she had like typed it out on a Word document and printed it out for me as a helpful study guide. And I memorized it. It never like specifically came up, but it was still such a huge relief not to have like, I don't even know the monarchs, like kicking around in the back of my head as I went on stage. Every little bit that you can shore up helps, and that helped a lot. It's a broad range of services that are available, and people want to help you solve problems here. I didn't come with a solution in mind for my specific issue, but I figured that the people here are experts in solving information problems like that. And it's fantastic to have a group of people who are so willing to help.